It's absolutely life-changing to allow God to be a part of your life. And the only way that you won't experience all the wonder that God has for you is by not perceiving the energy, not perceiving the oneness. And so you're quite literally shutting off your power because of a belief. If anybody's listening and they're like, oh gosh, I don't know. Just what if you believed that there was an energy that was working alongside you, that was guiding you, that was helping you, that you were actually guiding through your thoughts and through the way you're being. And what if it could help you to 2x, 3x, 4x every human experience that you have?
1, 0.
Hi, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion. Thank you so much for being here. You're in for another fantastic conversation, and today we have with us Kathleen Cameron. She's a successful entrepreneur, author, and CEO, and after starting her career as a registered nurse, she ventured into the digital marketing space in 2017 and realized the potential for personal and professional growth. In just 3 years, Kathleen built a $20 million business and has since impacted thousands of lives through her coaching programs, courses, books, podcasts, and TV appearances. Her expertise in manifestation and the law of attraction led to creating the Diamond Academy Coaching, a global success network that has helped over 100,000 people to attract love, money, and success. In today's show, we talked about how working with her mentors helped her achieve success, what success feels like in relationship to other people, um, how to question everything, even your own thoughts, and notice the words that you are saying because every word is almost like a spell, whether we know it or not. And also, we talked about God, universe, higher power, and how she specifically connect to it every day. I hope you will have fun and enjoy this show. If you do, please share it with people. I would love it if you can leave us a review. That will help the podcast a lot because I want to spread this message to 1 million people. That's my new mission. So help me with that. I would love that. If you're gaining value out of this, share the love and God bless. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Kathleen. Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. It's a pleasure having you here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Orion.
Thank you. Before we dive in, can you share a bit about your personal story and how did you discover your passion?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I originally thought that my passion was in nursing. I was a registered nurse actually for 12 years. So I followed kind of like a traditional life path. You graduate from high school, go to university, get a degree, get another one, then get a job, somewhere, make $100,000 a year, pension benefits, then go get a master's degree, did all those things. And then I ended up working as a nurse for 12 years and in healthcare administration. And I always felt kind of like there's got to be more to this, maybe, a stellar life out there for me. I'll use your language. But what ended up happening is I started to look at entrepreneurship more and more. And I started to really think about social media and I started to brand myself and sell some products online. And so I quit my nursing career in 2019 and was selling like affiliate marketing type of stuff, digital marketing online. And then in September of 2019, I got introduced to Bob Proctor, and that just changed my entire life. Magic started happening, signed up for one of his courses, and started to embody really what he taught me. And it was so beautiful. By January of 2020, I was like, hands down, this is my calling. I am meant to teach this. I am meant to help people. Magic has happened in my life so quickly. And so I have been doing that ever since. So it's been 4.5 years, I'm going to say. My coaching academy, Diamond Academy, turns 4 July 1st. So
Oh,
it's been 4 years. It's been absolutely magical. My journey has been so beautiful. I have a beautiful team of people that support me as well. And I help people, really, really create that extraordinary life that they desire through working less and not more. So the old me would have been like, let's go hustle and work, 17 hours a day. Now it's about how can I accomplish way more in this world, but actually have a life of my own as well, to be able
Yes.
to spend time with me.
Yes. So when I watched the video on your website, you were talking about having health challenges, like having fainting fits and stuff like that when you were trying to expand. How did that work? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was so interesting. So the fainting spells were in 2018 into 2019, and they were before I was in this material and in this work. So I totally now can look back on it and see exactly what happened. I was a woman who saw herself a certain way, who worked really, really hard. So I have two bachelor's degree, I have a master's degree. Then I went and got 3 or 4 certifications in my nursing profession. And then I focused on, so then I wanted to do more. So I start a business. So then I have this business on top of a full time, more than full time nursing career. And then I want to get healthy. So then I start thinking about health and releasing weight. And I go on to like a ketogenic diet. And then I start running and training for a 10K. So you can see that I was just piling, 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 piling. And my body was like, hold on, like you actually don't have the capacity to do anymore. So then that's where my body was like, forget it. So I started fainting, and it just forced me to rest. It forced me to stop. Had to go off work. Couldn't do too much in my business. Had to stop training and running. And I had to go within. And so it was no coincidence that at that time when I decided to listen and to rest and to be is when I met Bob, and I went within and I realized that I wasn't actually changing any of the programming within my mind. I was just moving my body more. So as soon as I went within, fainting spells stopped, started making more money. My business started booming. I started becoming happier, healthier, loving myself. It was really quite miraculous, actually, as I'm thinking back. But it makes complete sense because I had reached an upper limit in terms of my consciousness, and
Right.
there was nowhere else for me to go. I had to go within.
Yeah, so sometimes we create a stress and overwhelm within ourselves, and we almost like create a cage and we don't even know we put ourselves in it. Yeah, how do we break through?
Yeah, stress is not something that we have. Stress is something that we
Mm,
do. It's something that we actually create, right? And so um now I see life very, very different. And at any time that I do feel myself in that place where I feel stressed, I'm like, okay, what am I doing to stress about XYZ? And that's just a cue for me to
mm.
do less. It's a cue for me to rest. It's a cue for me to go within, to connect more to spirit.
And what if the stress is external? Like things happen in the world or something happens to a loved one. Do we build this overwhelm or do we receive this overwhelm? Like where's the boundary between, are we responsible for all of it, or is external stress valid?
Yeah, so this is such a beautiful question. I truly believe that outside circumstances are neutral. So things
Mm.
that happen in our lives are not good or bad, they just simply are. And our mind decides and gives the meaning of if it's good or bad. And so, what I help people with is to create strength in their mental capacity to interpret and perceive and to have different perspective for their outside world. So, when things in your life happen that at one time would have caused you a lot of stress, they happen and you're like, it's not such a big deal. I can handle it. It's all working out in my favor. So I think about turbulence on an airplane, for example, right?
Mm.
So turbulence on an airplane is neutral. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. And there's an explanation about what it is and how it works and why it's safe. Blah blah blah. That's a story that somebody could tell, and then somebody could tell an opposite story. But how I see it as is like there's one person experiencing the turbulence who is absolutely scared to death. That is afraid. They're shaking. They're grabbing onto the handles, and they have tears in their eyes. And then the next person is just sipping on a drink, like having a good time, like, oh yeah, we're fine. What's the difference? It's two different experiences of the same experience. And so the
Hmm.
only thing that is different is actually your consciousness. So in our lives, we will always experience loss. And there will always be things to have grief about. And there will be, you might make money today and you might not make money tomorrow. And you might have a health issue come up. You might experience pain. But it's actually creating the resilience in the consciousness to perceive it differently so that it actually doesn't have the same impact that it once would have had on you, per se.
Mm. Yeah. So, what are some tools one can use to become more resilient, to have this magical boundary between external and internal? I'm an empath, so for me, like building those boundaries, man, it takes a long time, and sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. I'm getting better every day, but it still takes a lot of work.
Yeah. So everything is what you decide that it will be. And the truth will be whatever the truth is that you decide it'll be. So, for example, how do we create a boundary between us and the outside world is to understand that the outside world is reflecting what's going on with your inner world. So self-awareness is number one. I always tell people, switch into being an observer, not an absorber. So the story that you just gave me, okay, it's a beautiful example, but you just told me your identity. So I'm an empath and I have a really hard time creating boundaries and yada, yada. So that is forever going to be your experience because that is what you believe to be true. So it becomes real, becomes your
Mm.
reality, the more that you believe in that. So I do believe myself that I am an empath. So, but what that means to me is different than what that means to you. So I believe that I can be aware of, I can feel, I can perceive, I can, like, if somebody comes to me and they're a bad mood, I know it. You don't have to say a word to me. I can feel it, and I can
Mm.
feel energy and yada, yada. But I also believe that I choose whether or not to absorb energy and for me to
Yeah.
take things on. So I actually think that I have this ability, this belief that I don't need to take on your feeling. It does not need to become mine. And so that's just a
Mm.
little shift in my belief system that I made to keep other people's energy away and out, so that it doesn't become something that I absorb. But you see how it all goes back to for me, it's
Yeah.
always the originating belief that I hold about me and I hold about the world will create a story that either serves me or hinders me.
So I love what you said. I think one day, maybe 7 years ago, I took Strength Finder to find my strength, and my first strength was an empath, and my third one was something that sounded like an empath. And so I think I took on that story that, ooh, I'm an empath, so I'm so vulnerable. And that's really a great shift for me right now to be able to doubt my thoughts and be like, wait, is this even my belief? Am I carrying that just because I took Strength Finder 7 years ago? And I was here, I speak to a lot of people, been already like 350 episodes on this show. And I speak to empaths and people that talk about empath, and there's a certain belief. Just like when we started this conversation, you clarified something about if I have something in my body, like if I have an earache, is this because I am not listening, or is it just because I have pain in my ear? Like what is it? So I like the way you think, where you're questioning everything. And especially from me, because I've done so many like self-help uh, workshops and been in this world for a while. It's almost like the knowledge is circulating, and sometimes it becomes a mantra that nobody doubts, because this is what somebody we really love and adore said, so let's trust and believe it. So it's very refreshing to me to hear what you're saying.
And I think that is one of the things that has allowed me to create such a beautiful life for myself is the ability to be so self-aware that I question what I believe about myself, but I also question everything that I hear and whether or not I want to believe it. So
Mm.
if I'm going to read a book, for example, somebody recommends a book to me and it is their favorite book, the best book of all time, and I grab it and I start reading it, I notice how that book makes me feel. And I notice how that book is starting to shift my belief system. And then I will
Mm.
ask, is this belief one that I want to accept? Is the truth of this going to benefit me? Is it going to empower me? Or is it going to hinder? Or is it going to limit me in some capacity? So I'm not like most people. I don't read books all the way through. I start them, and sometimes I'll start in the middle, sometimes I'll start at the beginning, and then I will assess it. And if it doesn't feel like truth operating me in me, I'm out of here and I won't finish it. So most of the books that I've been reading these days don't resonate. Some of the newer
Oh.
some of the newer books that I have been picking up, I find I don't resonate with, because many of them come from a scientific stance. Many of them come from a masculine or mechanical stance. And I am coming from a higher spiritual perspective these days. So I'm actually listening to more, I'm listening to my soul's knowledge more than I am to what's in books. Like I am literally
Mm.
inside, and it is a very powerful place to be. And that was a huge shift for me when it came to like embodiment of this work, and what that actually means to be living at a higher level of awareness and understanding and self-awareness. And so like hetero suggestion, outside suggestion from somewhere that is not within, you are so susceptible to it, all of us. Podcasts that we
Yes.
listen to, YouTube, TV shows that we watch, social media, books that we read. And so what I'm consuming, I'm like, ooh, hold on. Do I want to believe that? Even things, I just recorded a podcast about this actually. I think it was released a couple days ago. But like even things like human design, our gene keys. Um,
Ah,
I read that and I go, okay, so what from this do I want to take? And what do I want to leave behind? Because even astrology, there's some things in astrology, and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to believe that. Because once I believe that, I express from that belief, and then I create from that belief.
I'm loving this. This is awesome. It's so great. It's so great. I'm in my life, I'm more into going internal lately as well, where I do like non-dominant handwriting. And sometimes if I am overwhelmed, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and just start journaling and writing. And you do get really good answers. Maybe it's a part of growing up. I don't know. Some people never grow up, and some people never stop believing everybody else does. So this is a great reminder. Some people that are into this being like a spiritual seeker, um, it's very hard not to get mesmerized by somebody who's super charismatic and energetic and take everything that they say like the word of God. So I learned that, and I also learned to separate the guru from the message, where I was around very powerful people and I disliked their behaviors. And I'm like, okay, I cannot just throw everything. So they are who they are, but I'm going to take what I need from their teachings and do what I need with that. Right.
Yes, yeah. That's such a beautiful shift too. And sometimes when we idolize or put people up onto pedestals and we believe that they know something or have something that I don't know, we start to think that they're perfect. That they're the know all, the be all, and they have all. And I've had people kind of put me up on that pedestal, and I'm always like, just take it down, because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so the behavior that you are seeing in other people that you maybe don't resonate with is likely coming from their human perspective.
Yes.
It's coming
Mhm.
from the ego side of them, which exists in all of us. I have an ego, you have an ego, and it can be a very, very good thing to have those things. They help us to take the spiritual message and put it out into this physical 3D world through our ego. So that's a good thing. But I think what you said about separating the message is really powerful. And I learned this from Neil Donald Walsh. He said that truth is operating in you and it feels like peace, love, and joy. So if when you hear the message, it feels like those things, that's truth. You're remembering. It's a reminder of something that you've always known. And then the other things that don't feel like truth, disregard.
Right. Did Neil write The Little Soul in the Sun, the children book?
Yes, I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. He did Conversations with God, Happier Than God, which is my
Yes.
favorite book.
Yeah, I think I saw him in a Mind Valley event in Miami just a few months ago. He was teaching via Zoom. So how what did you learn from Bob Proctor that really resonated with you? Like, what shifted your life with his teachings?
So much, so much. I would say that there's two things. So prior to being introduced to Bob, I was very much in the mechanics of life. So it was my 3D physical body that was moving through life, driving the car, so to speak. So everything was about how can I be better at my job?
Mm,
I would learn external things. And so when I started working with Bob, that was the first time I went inward. So I started to study me instead of textbooks, instead of processes and policies and procedures. I started to study Kathleen. So that shift inward was profound and powerful. And I would venture to say that that's when I really, he really taught me about mindset. He taught me about the subconscious mind and the importance of reprogramming it. He taught me self image, things like that. He also taught me about vibration and how that
mm,
that concept or identity that you hold about yourself has a vibrational equivalent, which is an energy that you attract from. But one of the most profound things, and I actually didn't have the awareness of it until about a year later, but in September of 2019, when I started studying and started learning from Bob, I started to accept the idea that there was a entity, a infinite intelligence, a source, a creator, a universe that was working alongside me. So before that, it was just Kathleen, the physical body. And September
mm.
2019 is when I started to, I would have said universe for the first year. But truly in September of 2019 is when I actually started to believe and perceive of God and my oneness to God.
Don't say God. It's not so cool. You have to say universe, God. Everybody I talk to, well, whatever you believe, universe, God, the little bunnies at the end of the street, just say God. It's God, okay? Infinite intelligence. I believe it's God. It's not a bad word. A lot of people say a lot of people are afraid to say God, or because they're gonna offend someone. Um, I it doesn't matter what you call it. It is what it is.
Yes. And my belief is that your belief impacts your life. So I don't really care what you call it.
Mhm.
I You can use whatever language feels good to you. So when I am teaching in a public place, I will use all words. I will say God, source, universe, creator, whatever you want to call it. But
Mm,
it was my journey is now that I do believe that it is God, and it is a God of my understanding, not necessarily yours, but mine. And because all it matters is what I believe. It really doesn't
right.
matter to me what you do believe. So however you want to call it, whatever you want to believe in, that is entirely up to you. But I know that believing in a energetic entity that is outside of myself, that is also within myself, that is supporting me, guiding me, helping me, that I can actually guide God energy through my thoughts. That's my free will. So I truly do believe that that is what makes me so incredibly powerful, is my oneness to God. But it took me a little while to use the God language because there are belief systems associated with that word
Mm,
that can be uncomfortable for people. And so I don't want to
right.
be the reason that you can't hear my message because I use
Ah,
just the word God. If I use the word universe and that allows you to hear the message, amazing.
oh, nice.
So that's why I use it all. It's not in a belief that people are going to be upset or angry if I use God. That is my belief. I speak about God and I believe in God of my understanding.
I love that. Beautiful. Um, I think that God, also God, universe, whatever you want to believe it, God is it's an experience. It's not even a belief. There is the concept of what it is, and then there is the experience of what is. And through your connection and your experience with what is your God, is how you manifested this blessed life that you live in these days, where in the absence of that you were suffering. I think it's really not very wise not to believe in a greater force than yourself, because it makes life so hard. All the responsibility is on you. It's just like, even if it's fake, I think like it's just easier to believe in it. I don't think it's fake. I experienced God multiple times and on many levels, and it was so
Yeah, no, It's absolutely life changing to allow God to be a part of your life. And the only way that you won't experience all the wonder that God has for you is by perceiving, not perceiving the energy, not perceiving the oneness. And so you're quite literally shutting off your power because of a belief. And so, if anybody's listening and they're like, oh gosh, I don't know. Just what if? Like, just what if you believed that there was an energy that was working alongside you, that was guiding you, that was helping you, that you were actually guiding through your thoughts and through the way you're being? And what if it could help you to 2x, 3x, 4x every human experience that you have? So that could be love, it could be gratitude, it could be joy, it could be abundance and prosperity, it could be health, whatever you want. But there's infinite levels of all those experiences. And I've been able to tap into levels that I never would have ever thought were possible because of my ability to say, yes, I do believe.
Yes, and if anything, I believe that God is love. That's the belief that I hold. Um, and even if you just believe in love, and that this is a friendly universe that is loving you and wanting to give you what you want, if you just be open to it. What are your spiritual practices in this whole like mega success business entrepreneurial rocking the world? What, like, how do you balance all this very masculine business, left brain world with this like more of a spiritual connection and spirituality and even femininity that I got from you, that you really are in embracing your feminine power? How do you combine the both and create all that?
I think it's so cool, because if you would have asked me this question 2, 3 years ago, I would have said, I meditate daily, I journal, I ground myself, I do breath work. Like, I would have told you spiritual practices to feel more spiritually aligned and connected. But that's not my experience anymore. My experience anymore is that because I have tapped into a belief and understanding and awareness of who and what I really am, I'm spiritually aligned and connected most of the time. So,
Mm.
because of that, I'll meditate if I feel the call to. I'll do breath work if I feel the call to. I'll go for a walk if I feel the call to ground. Um, and so my life is very much in a very like flow state when it comes to that. I don't have mindset routines. I don't have morning routines. I don't have bedtime routines anymore. I'll read if I want to read. I'll pick up a book if I feel called. It's just really this beautiful dance about being self-aware and knowing when my perception is more in the human experience than the spiritual one, and doing things that I feel called to do in the moment to take me back into that higher spiritual awareness.
Mm.
um, I hope that makes sense. I think some people are going to be like, what the heck? But it truly is just knowing that I am a differentiated version of an undifferentiated God, and at any moment I can tap back in, and I don't have to try to force myself to do it. We almost want to use our human and our ego and structure and mechanics to get back into it, when all you really have to do is just listen and be.
Yes, but sometimes you need all those practices to satisfy the ego, until you, like you said, it's become some sort of embodiment where you're just connected all the time. You just listen.
Yeah, I think it's like, when you're at a certain point in your life and you recognize, okay, I'm very much living in my 3D human experience. I'm very much living in the personal mind and the ego, and I want to have a higher spiritual awareness. So, what are some of the things that I can do? So, I'm going to decide to meditate for 20 minutes every single day. I'm going to ground my body every day. I'm going to journal. I'm going to perceive my awareness. I'm going to pray more every day. And so, you might schedule them all in. But there has to come a point then when you let go of those structures and mechanics and routines to be able to say, okay, but now I'm just being the spiritual awareness that I am.
Oh, mic drop.
If that,
Beautiful.
I hope that makes sense.
No, I
Makes
love
sense
that.
today.
Yeah. It's really phenomenal. It's great. I'm man, my journey is never linear. Like I go through being really structured to just being to just not being and really in my ego, and I do it multiple times a day.
I think that's the journey, right? That's the beauty of self-awareness, because the more self-aware you become, you know what you need more of, right? You know, like, in order to understand the wholeness of who you are and how you exist on this 3D plane, is to be very self-aware and to be like, okay, well, Orion today needs a little bit more structure in her routines, but the spiritual entity and being of who I am is just okay to be in this moment right now, and that's okay. And so I think that's actually quite beautiful. And self-awareness is amazing. Like, I have a shaman practitioner that I have on a monthly retainer, and I know when I feel it, when I'm like, okay, where are you? Okay, here, and I'll let her know I'm feeling XYZ. She'll do some energy healings on me. We'll do some past life healings, um, things like that. But it's an awareness, not because I think I should, but because I'm being guided to that higher level of spiritual awareness. I want to show you too. I looked over as we were talking about this, and I forgot that I had this. It says, trust your spirit.
Oh,
Isn't
beautiful.
that beautiful? So just as I
Yes.
was talking about that, I look over and I see that.
Yes. And I like the 111 you're wearing that necklace.
Yes, the
And like
111 that's my spirit sign numbers. So God talks to me very, very regularly through the 111. So
mm,
it's everywhere, literally.
yeah. My husband and I are like, oh, it's 111. It's 222, 333, 444. It's almost like becoming a an inside joke. Not a, we do believe like, oh God, yeah, we do believe in connection and angels and spirit. What's your take on connection to spirits and guides and all that? How do you do it? And do you have like a bunch of spirits? Do you just connect to the whole? What's your journey like?
I feel very much like I connect to the whole. And yeah, I get a lot of guidance through other sources, mediums and stuff like that. But I'm cautious because there's interpretation of the message through the human that is delivering it.
Absolutely.
So I truly believe that I always want to take what I think is going to serve me, and not what's not going to serve me. But I truly do believe that anything that comes straight from the source to me is something that I can trust, in moment, anytime, and I don't doubt it for a second. But I
Mm.
don't believe that there's certain guides necessarily, because I do feel like it is a greater energetic whole anyways that I'm tapped into at all times.
Yeah. Some people even say that like all those guides are just fragments of your higher self, and they're they show up to you in a different way, and I guess all those fragments of higher self is a part of the collective infinite intelligence.
Everything is all one, and even there's so many times where, like, other thought leaders will say something, and I've never spoken to them before in my life. I've never read their content, I've never watched any of their videos, and they will say something that I literally have said myself, and I don't know where it came from. I just know it to be true.
Hmm.
And this is something that Neil Donald Walsh actually really helped me to tap into, is these conversations that I'm having with myself, which are really with God, are guiding me and allowing me to send a message through that has never been mine. So that's why when people quote me and they say, well, Kathleen Cameron said this, I'm like, well, it all comes from one place. It all comes from one
Mm.
source, all of this knowledge. So all of us are just here, sending the same message, just in different ways, because different people are going to hear it from different sources. And so it's not my message, it's the message.
When did you experience oneness?
Um, it would have been in September of 2019, but I did not become aware that that's what happened until probably a year later.
How was it? What was it like?
What is oneness like?
Yeah, what was it like for you, that experience?
So it's very much I very much call it an awakening. So the belief that you are your body, and that you are who you are and who you always are going to be. And that's just how it is, was the old belief. And so I was woken up to a new idea that I am not just my body. I am a spiritual entity that is having a human experience, and that every single thing that I have experienced in my life might not actually be real or true. And every single belief that I have stored in the mind might actually not be real or true. And that I can really remember whatever the heck I want and create anything that I want. And so that was that first awakening to like, holy cow, life has not been what I thought it had been the entire time. And that connection to source, that oneness, it is such a calm feeling, because when you know that you are one with the highest power that there is, and that power is coursing through you, you can do, be, have anything that you want. um, it really removes fear almost immediately. And even in May of 2022, I had lung surgery. That was another awakening for me up after that surgery. And after that surgery, I've actually lost the fear of death completely. I don't believe that I can. I'm eternal. My human body can go, but I am a spiritual entity that is eternal. So I've actually lost the fear of death now. So
Mm,
it's really quite calming.
yeah, I just finished a book by Anita. I forgot her last name, Burgiani or something like that. I'll link it in the show notes. It's called Dying to Be Me, where she had a near death experience, and after having a stage 4 cancer, and this was probably like she was in a coma, and they thought she was gone. And after she had the near death experience, she healed her cancer so rapidly that the doctors kept like checking her and poking her and checking her and poking her because they couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Wow.
I love this type of stories. Like I love, people that went to the other side and saw what they saw, and people see it also through different psychedelic journeys and breath work and anything that activates that God molecule in the brain that connects you to the whole. It's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience. But you have to be open to perceive it.
Right? Yeah, and if you don't, Abraham Hicks, when she wanted to communicate with her bunch, she spent 6 months meditating and wanting this connection. So if somebody that is listening wanting this connection, just ask. Might not come right away, but it will come. If you have the desire, it will come. You will you will be open enough to receive what you need.
And I always believe that it can happen as quickly as you're going to allow yourself to let it be. Right? Like I don't think I don't think we need to meditate for 6 months or go silent, you know? But people are going to hear that and be like, "Oh, I better start meditating. I better go do that," you know? And so I just ask myself, well, okay, so I do believe that God is a perception. So when somebody says, "What's it like to be connected, Kathleen?" Well, we're all connected. We all have our oneness. You're just unaware of it. You're just not perceiving it. So it's
Hmm.
just a choice to start to perceive. So the 111, that's a perception of God. That's me saying that this is God. So then
Hmm.
I'm perceiving God through the 111s. I'm perceiving God through coming out of my surgery and having a miraculous recovery. I'm perceiving God through allowing to listen to my own thoughts, which then tell me messages, and I say that they're messages from God. So it's truly your ability to choose to perceive it that allows you to feel and connect to your oneness.
Yes. Incredible. So I wonder, with all the success, so you had a very rapid shift in success and becoming, uh, a celebrity really quickly. How did you? How did your family handle it? How did your relationship with your kids evolve through that? And what about the external world? Because sometimes when we doesn't have to be, but sometimes when we are in a different vibration, other people that are in lower vibration cannot stay around.
Yes, yes. that has been my experience for sure. But what I will say is the relationships that I valued the most in my life, and the ones that were true, authentic relationships based on love, true, unconditional love, those are the ones that have always lasted. It is the relationships that were not deeply rooted and grounded in that were transactional, that are the ones that are no longer around. So if I'm going to benefit from you or gain something from you, those are the ones that no longer are here. And I'm sure there's still ones in my life now that are transactional, that are here right now in the interim for the identity of who I am, but they might not always be. But those ones that truly were rooted in love and that unconditional love, those are the ones that stuck through because, for one, I believed in the power of them and stayed true to holding an image of what they can and will always be. Whereas some of the other relationships, I just allow those to flow in and out of my life, understanding what those relationships are and have been. So I'll give you one example, Orion, because I think it's a good one. When I started in this material and started learning this work and embodying it, I was a married woman with two daughters living in a home in Guelph, Ontario. And so now, 4.5 years later, my husband and I are separated. We're no longer in a romantic relationship. But what is so beautiful, and some people are like, oh, well, the ascension, the growth, the fast success, the wealth, the business, it ruined your marriage. Well, actually, no, because where we are today, both of us, we have both tapped into a higher level, grandest vision and version of ourselves. And the relationship that we have today is actually better than the relationship that we ever had before. We still co-parent, we still run our business together. He is still one of my closest friends. I go to guidance and support from him still every day. I was talking to him right before I got on here with you. And so because of the change in the transition of our relationship, it's better than it was because I've ascended and grown. I feel the same way about the relationship with my sister, with my parents, with my kids, because those relationships were deeply rooted in unconditional love to begin with. And so because they have remained. But the relationships that haven't, it's because someone was gaining from someone else and they were no longer able to gain and they made their way out of your life. And so that's just a way for me to consolidate, and a way for me to know that there's a purpose and a reason for why this person is here and why this person isn't. And I allow people to flow in and out of my life. So if you're going to leave my life, that's great. And if you're going to come back in later, that's great. And not to create some story that success means everyone leaves, because that hasn't been my experience.
I love how in tune you are. Like you really know yourself, and that's very, very beautiful. Just extraordinary, really inspiring. Thank you so much. What are your three top tips to living a stellar life?
Oh my gosh. The first thing I always say has to be self awareness, right? It always has to be. So, like, the life that I built before this material was a life that I thought I should build. Like, I think I should do this, I should do that, I should do that. The world tells you. So, my life, the way it is today, is it's a beautiful representation of no longer creating that life that the world tells you that you think you should have. So I want an extraordinary life. I wrote that down on a piece of paper in 2019. What would my extraordinary life look like? And now I have that. And it's because of self awareness, choosing what I want and not what other people want. So I would say that's probably the biggest first tip. The second tip would be to live from your imagination. Nobody does this, and it is wild. And I never did this prior to 2019. I lived from my 3D experience. So I lived from the life that I observed. And so I was because of what I saw, but now I am and I see what I am because of the imagination. So everything comes from that source energy, which is guided through imagination. So imagination is God in my belief. And so whenever I can tap into, well, What would I love to experience? What would be the best case scenario? What could possibly happen next that would be amazing? And when I live from that assumption, when I live from that belief, it becomes my reality. So get to dreaming, please. If you knew how many of my dreams and my imagination have literally come through and how quickly they have come through because my ability to believe in them, you would think it was magic, but it's a power that every single other person here has. And then the third thing that I would say is to only be in your responsibilities when it comes to manifesting your stellar life. So you're responsible for waking up every single morning and getting dressed and showing up. And you are responsible for being the grandest version of yourself, the best of yourself every day. It is not your responsibility to want it or need it in a certain amount of time or for it to look a certain way. Those are God's responsibilities. So the
Mm,
how and when are up to God. And so if you are trying to do God's work and not just focused on your own, you are going to tire yourself out. So stay in your lane.
amazing. And where can people find you? Maybe you can share a bit about your program too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. A lot of people are finding me on Instagram these days. Kathleen Cameron Manifests. My YouTube channel is growing rapidly and we have lots of beautiful content there. I think it's also Kathleen Cameron Manifests. And then I have House of Manifestation, which is a starter subscription community for people that are at the beginning of their journey. And then I have higher level programs, of course, for people that are ready to ascend with me. And my highest program is my inner circle. And we're spending some in-person time together. So just, reach out to my team and they'll tell you what might be the best thing for you at your level of awareness.
Beautiful. So thank you. This was refreshing and fun. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It was beautiful, beautiful conversation.
Yes, thank you. I enjoyed it a lot. And thank you, listeners. Remember to focus on self awareness and choose what you want. Leave from your imagination. Only being your own responsibility for being your best self today. The how and the when is up to God. This is Orion. Till next time.